Hello and welcome back to Principles of Economics. Today we're going to take a look at the Consumer Price Index, which is used as a measure of inflation. So let's go ahead and jump right into our first learning objective to explain and calculate the Consumer Price Index. As I said, the Consumer Price Index takes a look at a general rise in the price level over time. Many contracts are linked to cost of living adjustments. For example, Social Security would be one of those. Another one might be if you have long-term contracts, being a contractual employee, then what happens is then your wages or your salary will definitely keep pace with inflation. And so this is great if you're a contractual employee. If you're not, then we don't see that same adjustment. So when you see the word indexed, that basically means that your contract, many times individuals doing work over several months will have their contracts indexed to inflation, so they don't actually lose a purchasing power in their dollar over time. Basically, these are the steps that we're going to use to calculate the Consumer Price Index. The first step is to fix the basket. And by fixing the basket, there are several things included in the Consumer Price Index. About 200 different products are in the Consumer Price Index. Everything from gas to funeral expenses are included. So for you, in your problems, they're going to give you 2 products, sometimes maybe 3, and we're going to fix the basket. So those will actually be given in the problem. The second part is to find the prices. Again, these will be given in our problems. The Bureau of Labor Statistics that I'll take you to later on in the modules are the individuals that collect all of this information by surveying about 30,000 different households. The third part is to compute the basket's cost. And what we're going to do here is we're just going to take the price times the quantity plus the price times the quantity for all of the goods that were given, and then we're going to sum those and get the basket's total cost for the particular years that we're looking at. Now, one of the things that's interesting about the Consumer Price Index is that we have to strip out the inflation from the total cost to really see how the price levels changed over time. The fourth step is to choose a base year, and a base year is always going to be the first year that you're given for the problems that you have. So it's always the first year that you're given will be your base year, which means that your basis points, or how you express inflation in the base year, will always equal 100 because you have the cost in the current year divided by the base year, so it's going to end up being 1 times 100. The next step then is to compute, so that would be our fourth step there. And then our fifth step is to compute the inflation rate. And how we do that is just a simple percent change. So we take the most recent information, we subtract the prior year, and then we divide it by the prior year. So it's just simply a percent change like we would do in mathematics. So here's an example. We've got some years, 2010 through 2012. We've got some prices of pizzas and prices of lattes. Our first step to fix the basket's cost is done for us up here. So we're going to have 4 pizzas and 10 lattes. We have the price of each in every year that we're given. So the first thing we want to do is multiply the price of pizza times the quantity, price times quantity, plus the price of lattes times the quantity. And that's how we ended up with the $60 that you see in 2010. We would do the same thing for 2011 and the same thing for 2012. So that gives us $60 in 2010 as the cost of the basket, 2011 $69, and 2012 $78. The next step then is to divide the current year by the base year. So if you look at this, compute the CPI in each year, what you're going to see is the most recent year. So we'll take the year that we're given, 2010, divide that by the base, which happens to be 2010, times 100. And so as I said in the previous slide, in our first year, our index points will always be 100. Second year, we would take the 69, so you see that inserted there, divided by the base times 100, which gives us 115, and we would say 115 basis points. Third year, we're going to take the 178, divide that by the base year, 60, and that will give us 130 basis points. Now, why we do this is because it's very easy then to see the changes that have taken place. So we can say that inflation from 2010 to 2011 grew 15%. And from 2011 to 2012, it grew the difference. And that's what you're seeing in this last step over here. So here's where we would have to calculate the percent change. So we take the most recent year, 130, subtract the previous year, 115, divide that then, make sure you do that first, and divide that by 115, which gives us a percent change of 13%. Okay, so now that we've illustrated how to do it, let's have you try it on your own, and then I'm going to work it out in the next slides. So here our basket, 10 pounds of beef, 20 pounds of chicken. The CPI costs 120 in 2010, so they gave us what the base year is, and again, base year being the first year that you're given. They're asking us to compute the CPI in 2011, and then the inflation rate from 2011 to 2012. So I'm going to go ahead and work that out in the next slide. Why don't you go ahead and work it out here, and then we'll check your answers. Okay, the first thing we were asked to do was to calculate. Okay, the first thing is to calculate inflation in 2012. So what we're going to do is to take the 10 pounds of beef. I'll just put a B for beef. 20 pounds of chicken. Okay. Our prices in 2010 for beef was $4, and I'll put a little B there. And for chicken was also $4. And then 2011 price was $5 for each. And 2012 beef went up to $9, and chicken is at $6. Okay, so we're going to take and calculate how much we have in the basket 2011, because they already gave us 2010. So in 2011, we're going to take our price, $5 for beef, times the 10 pounds of beef, plus our 20 pounds of chicken, times $5, and we get 50 plus 100, which gives us 150. So our basket's cost in 2011 is 150. They told us in the problem the basket's cost was 120 in the base year, and so what we want to do now is to calculate the inflation rate. And so we're going to take this year, 150, divide that by 120, and then multiply that by 100. So when we end up taking the 150, dividing it by the 120, we get 1.25 times the 100 gives us 125. Now the correct way to interpret this is 125 basis points, and we can see very easily that if our original basis points were 100, then the inflation rate for 2011 was 25%. Or we could say 120 actually I don't want to do it that way. I calculated that was 100 was our basis points, and we subtract 100 minus 125, and that gives us 25%. And so the prices rose 125% in 2011. Basically what this means is that the dollar lost 25 cents of purchasing power. So what you could buy in 2010 for $1, now you can only buy 75 cents worth of that particular good. The second part of the problem asked us to compute the inflation rate from 2011 to 2012, and I'm going to go back and gather some of the information I just had. Okay, so remember in 2010, the basket's cost was 120, and in 2011, the basket's cost was 150. So for 2012, I need to calculate the basket's cost, and if you remember, we have 10 pounds of beef and we have 20 pounds of chicken. And our prices were for beef in 2012, it was $9, and for chicken, it was $6. So now I'm going to go ahead and calculate the basket's cost. So I have 10 pounds of beef times $9 a pound, plus 20 pounds of chicken times $6 a pound. And so when I calculate that, it gives me $90 over 120. If I add those two together, I end up with, let's see, 210. So the basket's cost in 2012 becomes 210. Now what I want to do is calculate the percent change, but before I do that I need to get to basis points. And so I'm going to take 210, divide that by the base year of 120, and that gives me, let's see over here on the calculator, 210 divided by 120 gives me 175. 1.75 times 100, so I have 75. 175 would be the amount of the basis points. So I could say from 2010 2012 prices went up 75%, but that's not what it's asking me. It's asking me to compute the inflation rate. So I do need the inflation rate that we had from the previous year, and that was 125 for 2011. So now I can calculate that percent change, and I can say, okay, this year 175 minus the previous year 125 over the previous year of 125 times 100%, and that's going to give me, when I do this on the calculator, 175 minus 125 gives me 50, and divide the 50 by 125, basically 0.4, so 40% was the inflation rate for 2011 to 2012. Here we're just going to check our answers, and sure enough they got 125 just like we did. Again, basis points easily telling us that inflation went up 25%. At our next slide, what's the inflation rate from 2011 to 2012? Again, the 210 divided by the 120, which was what the basket cost in 2010. Our base year gave us 175 basis points, and then calculating that percent change. So prices rose 40% between 2011 and 2012, which means basically now your dollar only buys 60 cents worth of what it did in 2011.